Well, good morning, Britain. Just gone 7 o'clock. Welcome to a special edition of the programme and our world-exclusive interview with US President Donald Trump. The only interview is given to either United Kingdom or United States television at all. This is it. This is the one. So we thought, rather than chop it up and give you the little bits we thought you might be interested in, actually we think it's all pretty interesting because it's the only one he's given about what has been a hugely publicised state visit around the world.
So over the next hour, we will bring you the full unedited interview, no second left out. In the first part of an extraordinary and wide-ranging chat with Piers, the President talks about his mother, his meeting with the Queen, and his real thoughts on Meghan Markle.
Mr. President, how are you?
Very good.
What a trip you've had so far.
It's been an incredible trip. Last night was really quite unbelievable with the Queen, because that is a great woman.
You watched, I believe, the coronation when you were 6 years old in 1953 with your mother, who was a big monarchist, your mother Mary.
It's true.
And you watched that, it was 66 years ago. And as I watched you last night, I was thinking, what would your mother have made of her little boy, Donald, being the guest of honour at a state banquet at Buckingham Palace with the same Queen, now in her 90s, and you were there as President of the United States? What would she have made of it?
Well, she would have been very proud. She would have never thought in terms of president, because I never talked in terms of running for president. I decided to do it, and I won. I said to a couple of people, I think I'm going to do it. And then I said to my wife, I think I'll give it a shot. She said, you know you'll win. But I will say that my mother would have been very proud. She was a tremendous fan of this country, and she loved Scotland. She grew up in Stornoway. She left at 19 for New York. She met my father, and they were married for...
And she loved the royals, didn't she?
She loved the royals. She loved the Queen. And I always noticed whenever anything was on about the Queen, she would watch. She was a big fan of this.
Did you tell the Queen this?
I told her last night. She was very honored. But my mother would always, she just had great respect. She understood. My mother understood people very well. She knew people. And she got it right from the beginning. The Queen is a great lady, and my mother knew that.
Was that, in some ways, putting aside marriage, children, the personal stuff, was that perhaps the greatest experience of your life yesterday?
Well, you know, I kept hearing, because I've been through some pretty big things, okay? Right. And I kept hearing, I'd watch the news, I'd see the news go on, and they'd say, he's never had to handle anything like this. When he walks into that unbelievable room in Buckingham Palace, and he sees everybody that's there, and he looks at, the place is breathtaking, as you understand better than maybe almost anybody. And they said, I was noticing, people were saying, will he be able to handle the moment? I said, oh, wait a minute, I've had some pretty big moments. But I have to say, sitting there, I understood what they meant. It was really something spectacular.
Where does it rank?
Well, it's right up there. I mean, I had an inauguration, which I have to say was spectacular. And we had a big election night win. That was, you know, one of the great evenings. And outside of the personal things. But
you and the Queen seem to have a natural rapport. She seems warm
We
towards
had
you.
a great rapport. We had a conversation that lasted for an hour and a half, nonstop.
Really? What are you talking about?
I think really we were, well, I better not, I'm not going to say.
Any little hints?
I hear that we are not supposed to do that. So in fact, I said to her, tell me about this. I promise I'll never tell anybody about it. So I'm not going to break my promise in one day.
That's very, I mean, you were unusually, if you don't mind me saying, well-behaved last night. You seemed like you were on best behaviour, as if the Queen was somebody that you absolutely wanted to show maximum respect to.
Well, I have great respect for her. And yes, I think I'm on good behavior most of the time, but certainly last night. And I really got what, I usually call them the fake news media, because oftentimes they are fake, but I really got what they were saying, because when you walk in there, the moment is very impressive, especially when you're walking in with the Queen, and she can walk as fast as I can, but they don't do it. She walked very slowly, and, you know, the certain drain of music, and then later on we had the bagpipes from Scotland, and that was
we
so
gave
incredible.
you the full 9 yards of
I
our
think
pomp
you gave,
and pageantry.
yes, I think
And you
so.
have been flirting with Emmanuel Macron and other leaders. Has this trip restored Britain as your #1 special relationship?
Well, it's always been right there, and I've actually had a very good relationship with your Prime Minister. A lot of people don't know that. We've had little bouts, but have been very minor. And if you remember my last trip, it was really a very good relationship. But I have a good relationship with many of the leaders. Prime Minister Abiy, very special, just got by. He invited me as the only country, he invited me as representative of the United States and the First Lady to be the only people at a special ceremony for the new emperor, which is the first in 202 years. You know, it's a 3,000-year bloodline, but it's the first time where the emperor before death abdicates.
Would you like to have a 3,000-year bloodline for the
I think it would be great. I don't know what I'd be doing for the rest of the time, but I think it would be great. But it was a great thing in Japan. It was great. This was very, very
I want to clarify one thing, which is obviously people have been talking about. This Meghan Markle business.
Yeah.
Do you think Meghan Markle's nasty or not?
No. You know, the question was asked to me, and I didn't know that she said anything bad about me. It sounds like she did, and that's okay. I mean, hey, join the crowd, right? You've heard about that too with yourself. I know that, right? But it seems like she had, and they said some of the things that she said, and it's actually on tape. And I said, wow, I didn't know she was nasty. I wasn't referring to her, she's nasty. I said she was nasty about me. And essentially, I didn't know she was nasty about me. So I said, but you know what? She's doing a good job. I hope she enjoys her life.
What do you think of her?
I think she's very nice.
She's an American princess.
Honestly, I don't know her. So I have to be honest, I don't know her. But it just shows you how terrible the news can be. Because if you read that, I'm sure you did, that was talking about nasty. She was nasty about me.
We had to clear it up because it was a little bit ambiguous.
I don't mind clearing it up, actually, because you read it. I mean, they have the tape. They released a tape. And CNN and some of the other phonies, they went out and they took the tape and they even tried to, you know, disgorge it from that. So what happens is they talked about nasty, but we were talking about nasty. She was nasty to me. And that's okay for her to be nasty. It's not good for me to be nasty to her, and I wasn't.
Did you get a chance to talk to...
I think she's doing very well.
Did you get a chance to talk to Prince Harry?
I did. I congratulated him, and I think he's a terrific guy. The royal family is really nice.
Did he say, come on, do you think my wife's
No, we
nasty?
didn't talk about it.
You didn't?
I was going to, because it was so falsely put out there. And when you see that transcript and you see, it's the exact opposite of what they said. Did you look at the transcript?
I did.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I could see it was ambiguous.
No, I don't think it was ambiguous.
I could see it was ambiguous. People couldn't work out if you meant what she'd said was nasty or whether you thought she was nasty.
No.
So now you've clarified.
What she said was nasty based on what they told me.
But Harry didn't have a problem with you? Because there were rumours that he didn't want to talk to you and all that kind of thing.
No, just the opposite. In fact, he spent a lot of time talking to Ivanka and talking to my family. I went up. He couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't have been nicer.
What do you think of him?
I think he's great. How am I doing?
You're doing well. You're being very dignified and kind of, you know...
But see, I'm only doing that because
behavior.
I mean it. No, I really think he's great. I think he's a wonderful guy. I think the family. I spent time
You
with...
met Prince Charles?
I did. I spent time with Prince Charles. I spent time with... I mean, this has been 2 days of intensive... it's not work because I like it. And I really like the royal family. And, of course, headed by the Queen, who is a woman like few
Prince
others.
Charles is very passionate about a lot of issues, one of which is climate change. I assume you talked about that.
We did.
Did he manage to persuade you about the merits of the science on climate change?
Well, we were going to have a 15-minute chat, and it turned out to be an hour and a half, and he did most of the talking, and he is really into climate change, and I think that's great. I mean, I want that. I like that.
Did you listen to him about it?
I totally listened to him, and he also talked about architecture. He's very much involved, and I've known this for years. I think the architecture was earlier, but he very much loves architecture and important architecture.
What did he say to you about climate change?
What he really wants and what he really feels warmly about is the future. He wants to make sure future generations have climate that is good climate as opposed to a disaster. And I agree. I did mention a couple of things. I did say, well, the United States right now has among the cleanest climates there are based on all statistics, and it's even getting better because I agree with that. I want the best water, the cleanest water. Crystal clean, has to be crystal clean.
People want, if you don't mind me saying, Mr. President, what people want to hear from you about climate change is that you basically understand that almost every scientist that looks into this believes climate change is a very real and present danger. And if we don't tackle it now, and America has to lead the way along with China and India, then we're going to be in serious trouble. Do you accept that?
Well, you know, you just said it. China, India, Russia, many other nations, they have not very good air, not very good water in the sense of pollution and cleanliness. If you go to certain cities, I'm not going to name cities, but I can. If you go to certain cities, you can't even breathe. And now that air is going up. So if we have a clean, in terms of a planet, we're talking about a very small, very small distance between China and the U.S. or other countries.
Sure, I think there's mutual responsibility.
No, but they don't do the responsibility.
But do you personally believe in climate change?
I believe that there's a change in weather, and I think it changes both ways. Don't forget, it used to be called global warming. That wasn't working. Then it was called climate change. Now it's actually called extreme weather. Because with extreme weather, you can't miss. Look, we have a thing now in tornadoes. I don't remember tornadoes in the U.S. to the extent. But then when you look back, 40 years ago, we had the worst tornado binge that we've ever had. In the 1890s, we had our worst hurricanes, and I would say we've had some very bad hurricanes.
Were you able to give Prince Charles any comfort that you, as the United States president, are taking him seriously?
I think I was, yeah. I think we had a great conversation, and it was about, as you would call it, climate change. But, yeah, I think we had a very, very good time.
Has he moved you a little bit?
I'll tell you what moved me is his passion for future generations. He's really not doing this for him. He's doing this for future generations. He really felt, and this is real. He believes that. He wants to have a world that's good for future generations.
You want that?
And I do too. And that really, isn't he that? You know, he's Prince Charles. He doesn't have to worry about future generations in theory, unless he's a very good person who cares about people. And that's what impressed me maybe the most, his love for this world.
Piers?
Well, in the second part of my extraordinary and pretty wide-ranging chat with the President, I asked him about Sir Winston Churchill. We were in the Churchill war rooms, and his thoughts on Jeremy Corbyn, very different kind of leader. I also asked him why, if he says he supports LGBT rights and wants to stop persecution of LGBT people around the world, well, why has he banned transgender people from serving in the US military? I also asked him about these growing tensions with Iran. Is he considering military action? We're here in the Churchill war rooms. I mean, a remarkable place, full of history. It's where Churchill declared war on Germany. It's where he conducted most of the business of war. He spoke to President Roosevelt from a room here, a private secret restaurant.
That's right.
How do you feel being here in this center of power? This is the generator, the power of the war rooms.
I think it's incredible because I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill, and I studied Winston Churchill, and I said, where did he make all the phone calls to FDR, to Roosevelt, and President Roosevelt? And they were showing me, here's where he made that call. Here's, they have everything documented.
How did that make you feel to think that could have been you?
Well, it's just an awesome responsibility. I will say, being President of the United States, even the way they treated me, I think I have a very good relationship with the people in the United Kingdom, but is it me or is it the country? Our country loves your country. I love your country.
Well, you're half British, aren't you?
I am half. I mean, if you think about it, right? And
well, did you see similarities in yourself to Winston Churchill?
Well, if I ever said that, I would be ridiculed all over. Look, he is a great gentleman. I would certainly like to see similarities, but I can't say that. But look,
you don't see any?
Really? What he did better.
What about his kind of his swashbuckling style,
well,
his fearlessness? He was polarizing.
Well, that's true.
You don't see a bit of Winston in you?
No, what I see with him is he was able to handle pressure very well. If you think about a man that handled pressure, he was being bombed, it was over. Hitler was unstoppable at the time. I mean, people forget that at that time, Hitler was virtually unstoppable. He was going through countries like cheese, and he was out there calling Roosevelt, you got to get in, you got to get in. And then the big moment was Pearl Harbor. In fact, I spoke to Prime Minister Abe the other night. I said, Pearl Harbor actually got us into the war indirectly, and we helped Britain. That's when we came in. And Churchill probably knew that before anybody. Churchill, when he heard about Pearl Harbor, he said, now they're coming into the war finally. So that was a big moment.
He had an American mother. You had a British mother. In that way, you had a link.
It evens out.
Yeah.
It evens out. Now, he was a great man, and he was a man that reacted so well under the gun, under fire, under pressure. And there aren't many people like that. I respect that greatly.
Is he a hero of yours?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I never like to have heroes. I like to respect people. But certainly he would be right up there. He would be somebody that you would most respect. He would certainly be a hero.
Who is the American president you most identify with?
Well, I always liked Ronald Reagan. I liked him for everything other than maybe trade. I thought trade could have, it just didn't seem to be enough of a focus. And that was when we started doing foolish trade deals, that generation, that it really sort of began then. But I thought he had a great way about him. His way was incredible. His manner, his bedside manner, they say about a doctor, has a great bedside manner. Some doctors do, and most of them don't. He had a great bedside manner.
How's your bedside manner?
I actually think it's a lot better than people would think. We have tremendous support. I just found out we have 94% support in the Republican Party. That's higher. Ronald Reagan was the highest at 86, and we have 94%. It just came out of approval, the approval rating.
The economy is doing well in America.
The economy is doing great.
Our economy is pretty much stalling in this country because of his ongoing Brexit fiasco, as many people see it. The Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, apparently wanted to see you. You declined that kind of invitation, and he spent the most of today shouting and screaming about you and protesting and saying how awful you are. There is a chance, if this goes wrong for the Conservative Party in the next few months, he could end up Prime Minister. Could you imagine actually doing a trade deal with Britain with someone like Jeremy Corbyn as a leader?
It's always possible. Anything's possible. I don't know him. He wanted to meet. It was very tough to meet and probably inappropriate to meet, to be honest with you. A lot of things are happening right now with respect to our country and your country, my country, and let's call them almost the same because I feel that way. It's really a tremendous relationship. So I don't think it was appropriate to meet him, but I would. I certainly would. I'd have no problem with it. I think it's a long shot when you say that. You know, it's not. I don't think it's going to happen.
No leader, it seems to me, would allow Britain to effectively sell the NHS as part of a trade deal. Would you, as the American president, see that as a deal breaker if none of the NHS was on the table?
I don't see it being on the table. Somebody asked me a question today, and I say everything's up for negotiation because everything is, but I don't see that being, that's something that I would not consider part of trade. That's not trade.
Who do you think is going to win the leadership contest? Boris?
Well, yeah, Boris, who's doing well. I think Jeremy is doing well. I don't know too many of them, but those two I have a lot of respect for.
Michael Gove?
I don't know him. I met him last night at the dinner for the first time. I thought he was very good. You have a lot of good people running. I will say this. Your next prime minister, whoever it may be, that's going to be a very important. You're in a very interesting moment in your country's history. Your next, and I was saying to the Queen last night, the choice of your next prime minister is a very important choice.
Prince Charles,
you really have to get it right.
Prince Charles, I'm told, is veering pro-Brexit now. Did he give you that sentiment?
He really is. He really wants to be, and he's openly non-political. The family is non-political. They want to be. They have to be. I think they have to be. I think it's pretty hard for them to go political, right? But he feels you have a lot of good choices. I do too. I think you really do have a lot of good choices. I think it's very important that you get it right.
The D-Day commemoration this week, hugely important for our, both our countries and for all Allied forces who took part that day. What kind of debt do you think we owe the people that fought on the beaches of Normandy? Well,
the ultimate debt. That was, you know, I was looking at some of these statistics. That may have been the greatest battle ever in history. You know, you hear so much about different battles, not to mention any, because they're all, you know, important, especially when so many people died in so many of them. But there are those that say that was the greatest battle of them all, and that was something really incredible. And being there is going to be, being at that site will be very interesting.
You were not able to serve in Vietnam because of a bone spur condition in your feet. Do you wish you'd been able to serve? Would you like to have served your country?
Well, I was never a fan of that war, I'll be honest with you. I thought it was a terrible war. I thought it was very far away. Nobody ever, you know, you're talking about Vietnam, and at that time, nobody ever heard of the country. Today, they're doing very well. In fact, on trade, they are brutal. They're very brutal. They're great negotiators. They're great business people. But nobody heard of Vietnam. And they say, what are we doing? So many people dying. What is happening over there? So I was never a fan. This isn't like I'm fighting against Nazi Germany. We're fighting against Hitler. And I was like a lot of people. Now, I wasn't out in the streets marching. I wasn't saying, you know, I'm going to move to Canada, which a lot of people did. But no, I was not a fan of that war. That war was not something
Would you
that
like
we
to
should
have
have been
served
involved in.
generally, perhaps in another?
I would not have minded that at all. I would have been honored, but I think I make up for it right now. I look, $700 billion I gave last year, and then this year $716 billion. And I think I'm making up for it rapidly because we're rebuilding our military at a level that it's never seen before.
One issue I wanted to ask you about your military is this week you tweeted your support for the LGBT community around the world where they're being persecuted or excluded.
It's terrible.
Which does prompt the obvious question. If you feel that protective of the LGBT community, why did you feel the need to ban transgender people from serving in the US military?
Because they take massive amounts of drugs, they have to, and also, and you're not allowed to take drugs. You know, in the military, you're not allowed to take any drugs. You take an aspirin, and they have to, after the operation. They have to. They have no choice. They have to. And you would actually have to break rules and regulations in order to have that.
But the cost of the medication is minuscule compared to the overall budget, right?
You
accept that.
You also had
the
the
US military spends a lot more money, for example, on giving Viagra to service men and women, or service men.
I didn't know they did
Than it does actually on medical bills for transgender people.
Yeah.
And so it just seems to me an unnecessary thing for a guy who wants to be supportive of LGBT rights and the community around the world, that you've taken this action.
Well, it is what it is. Look, massive amounts, and also people were going in and then asking for the operation, and the operation is $200,000, $250,000, and getting the operation, the recovery period is long, and they have to take large amounts of drugs after that for whatever reason, but large amounts, and that's not the way it is. I mean, you can't do that. So I said, yeah, when it came time to making a decision on that, and because of the drugs, and also because of the cost of the operation, people were going
transgender people in the US military have won serious gallantry awards.
Yeah.
What do you feel about
Well, I'm
them?
proud of them. I'm proud of them. I think it's great. But you have to have a standard, and you have to stick by that standard. And we have a great military, and I want to keep it that way. And maybe they'd be phenomenal. I think they probably would be. But again, you have very strict rules and regulations on drugs and prescription drugs and all of these different things, and they blow it out of the water.
A couple of points, just to wrap up, Mr. President, if I may. A lot of war drums beating about Iran. Iran remains a huge issue for you and your administration. What is the situation there, and are you considering military action?
So Iran is a place that was extremely hostile when I first came into office. They were on 14 different sites between Yemen, Syria, and then many other battle zones. They were behind terrorism in lots of different places. They were a terrorist nation, #1 in the world at that time, and probably maybe are today, and they were a funder of terrorism. President Obama made a deal, the Iran nuclear deal, which was a terrible deal because it was a short-term deal, didn't do the trick. Paid $150 billion, paid $1.8 billion in cash, if you can believe it, in cash. And I was very much against that. I was very much against the deal. I terminated the deal, and Iran is a much different country today.
Do you think you will need to take military action?
There's always a chance. Do I want to? No, I'd rather not, but there's always a chance. And
Churchill said he always preferred to jaw to war.
Yeah.
You have shown that you're prepared to jaw with traditional American enemies.
Sure.
Vladimir Putin in Russia,
Sure.
Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Are you prepared, if it comes to it, to jaw with President Rouhani of Iran?
You're talking about talk.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I'd much rather talk.
You would sit down with him and have a chat?
Sure, and I said that, and he said that. He said the other day, he said, I'm not looking to go to war with the United States. The only thing is we can't let them have nuclear weapons. I know so much about nuclear weapons. Don't forget, I'm the one that gets trained and has to study this as
Have you thought
president.
about the moment?
No, but I see the damage done. I see the horrible damage done. No, I don't want them to have nuclear
I was going to ask you, I mean, you've had to consider the reality as the US president of actually pressing the nuclear button. Very few people have that responsibility.
That's right. It's a tremendous responsibility.
What do you feel about that?
I think it's a terrible responsibility, but it's a responsibility I'm prepared to handle.
Churchill sat in these very rooms and had to declare war on Germany. Right. Have you thought about the moment, if you had to declare war, what that would feel like?
I don't want to have to think about it, but there may be a time when I will have to think about it. But I will tell you, Churchill didn't have to worry so much about the nuclear. That was early on, although it wasn't so far down the road when you think about it. But he was very brave, and he did a lot of right moves. I mean, I don't think he was given credit, certainly after what happened. He was given credit later on after death, much more so than he was after what he did in the war, which is always the problem. I say maybe sometimes you're better off tooting your own horn. I don't think he was given the proper credit, certainly during his life. But the nuclear has to be solved. The nuclear is too big a problem. It has to be solved.
See, I'm encouraged by the way he talks about warfare, Trump. You know, everyone...
Before President Trump wraps up his state visits, he sat down with Good Morning Britain, well, Good Morning Britain's Piers Morgan, for a world-exclusive interview.
Susanna.
Yeah, let's give you the credit you deserve, Piers Morgan.
On a positive note, my daughter, who's 7, is watching the interview and just messaged me to say, you look like a fairy angel today. So it's been a very good day for both of us.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm glad I'm playing my part.
Anyway, here's, on behalf of a fairy angel and myself, here's the final part of my chat with the President of the United States. We discussed his hopes for the 2020 election. Who does he think might be able to beat him on the Democrat side, if anybody? The ongoing threat of terrorism and his stance on one of the biggest problems in America and a pet hate of mine, the gun violence and epidemic of mass shootings. On a personal thing, I knew Senator John McCain well. I liked him, I respected him. I quite enjoyed your battle with him when he was alive. You would give it to him, he'd give it to you, and it went on. It seems a little beneath you, if you don't mind me saying, that now he's dead, you're carrying on attacking him. Is it not time to let it go?
No, I don't attack him. People ask me, like you're asking me, I didn't bring his name up, you did.
Sure.
You brought his name up, John McCain. So I'm not attacking him at all. I don't think about him. I was not a fan. I didn't like what he did to health care. I didn't like how he handled the veterans because I got him choice. He was always unable. He was on committees that he could have done
dead,
it.
Mr. President. I mean, there has to come a time, isn't there?
Excuse me, but Piers, you're asking me a question.
Sure.
If you don't ask me about John McCain, I would never talk to him.
I agree.
Somebody asked me the same question the other day.
But I'm asking because you know the battleship thing last week where, you know, there's
But
somebody...
I knew nothing about that. I'm not even sure it happened.
I'm not doubting you at all. I'm just saying that somebody clearly said something. And it just seems a bit preposterous. That
Here's the thing. I'm not even sure it happened. First of all, I didn't know anything about it, but I'm not even sure it happened. Somebody said they're painting the ship and they have the tarpaulins and they're painting the ship and they have tarpaulins all over the place. I have no idea if it happened or not. I hear it's fake news, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But again, I don't talk about John McCain unless somebody asks me about him.
Final question. 2020 is looming.
Right.
The next election. The economy is doing well.
Right.
In the United States.
Great.
Most presidents who are incumbent presidents who run again on a good economy get re-elected. Are you confident of winning? And do you see anybody, Joe Biden is the clear favourite and front runner on the Democrat side, but do you see any Democrat that you think potentially might cause you problems and beat you?
So I'm running on maybe the greatest economy we've ever had. I'm in the midst of a couple of trade negotiations, which I think are going to work out very successfully because we have the cards. I have all the cards. You know, we're the piggy bank. We're the bank that everyone wants to steal from and rob. And when you have that, you have the cards. And I do have the cards. And I have the cards on Mexico, cleaning up the country, their country, so that we don't have the onslaught of millions of people trying to rush our border. So we have a lot of things that I'm working on. They're good things. I didn't have to work on them. I could have been.
Do you see any Democrat that you're worried about?
I don't see anybody that I would. This is not. There is no Winston Churchill in the group. Let me put it that way.
You don't see Joe Biden as the new Winston Churchill?
No, I think that would be a big upset if he was. I'll tell you, that would be a big surprise to a lot of people. No, there's nobody that I see that should be able to win. Look, I'm running on the best economy in our history. I've rebuilt our military. I knocked out ISIS. You know, I took the count. That doesn't mean people aren't coming around and they're going to blow up a store because they're crazy. These are crazy people. But when I took over, ISIS was all over the place. Now we've taken back 100% of the caliphate. Nobody thought that was possible to do it that quickly. We have an incredible
One thing
military.
you also did, I want to pay you credit for this, because when we spoke in Davos after the Las Vegas mass shooting,
Right.
I brought up the issue of bump fire stock and why it was legal when it was used to convert legal weapons to illegal ones. And you did ban bump fire stock.
I ended it.
I don't think you got enough credit for that. There's just been another massacre in Virginia Beach where the shooter used a silencer.
Yeah.
What is your view of
don't like
silencers?
it.
Would you like to see those banned?
Well, I'd like to think about it. I mean, nobody's talked about silencers very much. They did talk about the bump stock, and we had it banned, and we're looking at that. I'm going to, seriously look at it. I don't love the idea of it. I don't like the idea. What's happening is crazy. Okay, it's crazy. what's going on with schools, and not only in our country, I mean, not only in our country, but again...
But America has this particular issue with gun violence. You and I have discussed this for years.
Sure we have.
There's been 150 mass shootings in America this year alone.
Yeah.
You know, in Britain, we have 35 gun deaths a year. In America today, there'll be 85.
Yeah, but you know,
tomorrow, 85.
But in London, you have...
What can you do to change the culture?
But Piers, in London, you have stabbings all over.
Sure.
I read an article where everyone's being stabbed.
Well, we've had about 50 odd stabbings.
Stabbed.
We've had 50 odd murders with knives this year.
Well,
in London.
They said your hospital is a sea of blood all over the floors.
We have a big problem. I'm not going to deny we have a problem with knife crime.
It's a sea of blood, and they don't have the guns.
We have a problem with knife crime. What do you think you can do as a president, though, to change the mindset about gun violence
Just
in
talk
America?
about it. You have to talk about it. But Piers, when somebody has a gun illegally and nobody else has a gun because the laws are that you can't have a gun, those people are gone. They have no choice. They have no chance. They have no chance. It's a very tough subject. But the bad guys are not getting rid of their guns. Pretty much everybody agrees with that. The people that obey the laws, if there was a law passed, they get rid. Those people are sitting ducks. You know, the one I think about the most is Paris, where they had so many people killed, where that wacky group of people went into the nightclub and they just boom, boom, boom. And they killed like tremendous numbers of people, horribly injured, so many more still in the hospital, I read the other day. Some are still... No, but if there was a gun on the other side,
right.
If 1 or 2 or 3 of those people had a gun,
but here's my problem with that argument.
Here's
my problem with that argument. More people were shot dead in America that week than have died from guns in Paris since the Second World War.
I'm just telling you...
I mean, the stats are so against that argument, aren't they?
Well, what are you going to do? You're going to take the guns away from hunters? You have hunters, and
no, I think you can have special licenses for hunters.
Yeah.
And actually, I sort of subscribe to the view of the right to bear arms, allowing someone to have a handgun or something for home thing. I don't understand, never have understood, why anyone in America needs a semi-automatic AR-15 assault rifle at home. Why do they need...
Well, a lot of them use them for entertainment. They do. I mean, it's really...
The gun's entertaining?
For some people, it's entertainment. They go out and they shoot, and they go to ranges, and they have a tremendous amount of fun.
And specific hunting with licenses, I get that. What I don't get is the need... This guy in Vegas had 13 AR-15 assault rifles. He'd bought 52 guns in 1 year. I mean,
and he was a sick guy, and if it wasn't guns, he would have done bombs, or he would have done something else. He was actually a pretty smart guy. He was supposedly a good, successful gambler, and there's almost no such thing as a successful gambler. And he went out, and what he did was incredible.
Well, you did something.
But he would have done.
With bump fire stop, Mr. President, to give you credit on that again, you did get bump fire stop fire.
He used the bump stop.
You got it banned,
right.
And that will make a difference.
Good.
I urge you to carry on doing something on guns.
Okay, thank you.
Because I think it would be great if the American gun violence could be reduced in some way. And I think we would both agree on that.
We do.
Well, I'd like to end the interview. We have a little gift for you.
Good.
Because we're in the Churchill war rooms.
Right.
This is where Britain's greatest leader fought the war. And he used to wear these famous hats from the hat maker Locke.
That's beautiful.
And so we've had one made for you.
I like it.
This is a Churchill hat, exactly in the style he used to wear it. We've had it monogrammed with DJT.
I like it.
And on behalf of Good Morning Britain and ITV, we would like to present you with a Churchill hat.
Piers, I never knew you had that kind of sensibility. That's sort of beautiful. Are you allowed to do this? He didn't do that.
I think you can do that.
He didn't do that, and he definitely didn't do that. Right? I know that. Wow.
You want to try it?
I'll try it, you know, because one thing I proved by being a politician, it is my hair. They would have found out a long time ago.
Do you think you or Boris Johnson has the best hair?
I don't know, but... I do think he's a good person. I think it's going to be a very interesting...
Who's the British Trump? Is it Boris or Nigel Farage?
I guess, well, Nigel's another one. I like Nigel.
Who's the British Trump?
I don't want to say. I don't want to destroy anybody's... I don't want to destroy anybody's career.
If you had a...
you know? But they're good people. They're good people. And Jeremy's very good. I've gotten to know Jeremy.
Jeremy Hunt. You obviously like Jeremy Hunt. You mentioned him a few times.
No, I think Jeremy's very good. Let me try this on.
Please try it on. That'd be great.
No, it's a little big.
Well, we can get that. That's fantastic.
Let me see how that looks. I think Churchill looked...
So Winston Trump?
I think Winston looked much better this way.
Mr. President, it's great to see you. Congratulations on a very successful trip.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best at the D-Day commemoration, which is very important for both of us.
Thank you very much, Piers. Appreciate it.
Great to see you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.